So what is it, which type of methods I need to make here? Now, as we discussed here, now ATM. Now whenever you have ATM, so some of the functionalities of ATMs should be exposed to the outside world. Some of the functionalities which are used internally by the ATM machine, like counting the cash, dispatching the cash, right? All these are some of the functionalities are internally used by the ATM machine. So whenever you design your class, right? Whenever you design your class, generally whatever the methods which are internally used for your class purpose, which should not be exposed to the outside world, right? So such kind of methods we make as what? Private methods. Internally used by your class, generally we call as helper methods, which helps some other methods, right? So if you want such kind of methods, whenever you have such kind of class, whenever you design your class in such a way that, but so if the methods are internally used by your class only, not by the outside object, like as we discussed, ATM machine, right? Counting the machine, counting the money, it is internal thing of ATM machine. It should not be operated through any other objects. It should not be given outside access, right? So in that case, we take the methods as private methods. Generally we call as helper methods for that particular class, which helps some other methods, helper methods, right? So definitely we go for private methods. Whenever you have actual business logic which should be operated, generally we write this business logic as part of what? Private methods only, right? Some methods which take the data, right? And if you want to process the data and all, generally we make them as what? Private methods, right? So this is where you come across private methods. And let's suppose again the same story. If we have a superclass method as private, so what happens here? I have a superclass and my superclass method is private. What happens? Right? As we discussed, the visibility of these private methods are private variables up to that particular class only. They are visible and they are accessed within that particular class environment only. They are not accessed outside of that class. So if I have a private method, now what happens? If the class contains a private method and it has a child class, right? So these private methods will not be accessible. So private methods will not participate in inheritance. So that through a child class object you cannot call superclass methods, right? As well, in the same way, as we have a concept called as overriding the superclass method means what? Re-implementing the superclass method in the child class. Whenever you have a method in the superclass and if you feel that method is not correctly implemented, so while extending the child class, you can re-implement that method in the child class. And if it is having a private method, then what about this superclass method is private and I want to re-implement this method in the child class, right? So like this. So if I have a class A, right? So if I have a class A, public class A, right? And here let's suppose I have a method inside this private void method. It's a method inside this, right? And now I'm going to create a child class for this, right? With some implementation. Assume that there is some implementation. Public class B extends A. Now I have some implementation inside this. Now I would like to re-implement this method. So re-implementing means what? Override this method. So what is this? Can I do this re-implementation of this method? Right? Can I do this re-implementation of this method? Is it called as re-implementation? Right? So it is not called as re-implementation. Why it is not called as re-implementation? Because of this method is visible or accessible inside this class only. It is not visible or accessible outside of this class. Overriding is a concept when the method is available to a child class. When a superclass method is available to a child class and that method is not correctly implemented in the superclass, then re-implementing that method in the child class is called as what? Overriding. So method should be available to the child class, then that method is re-implemented. But if the method itself is not available, here in this case method is not available to B, then what is the meaning of re-implementing it? There is no meaning of re-implementing it, right? So method is not at all available. So what is the concept? Where is the concept of re-implementation of this? So this is correct. You can write this. You can write this private method here, you can write this private method here, but there is no relation between this private method, this private method. Absolutely no. This is private to this class and this is private to this class. If this method is available to this class, then there is a meaning of overriding it. If the method itself is not available, so there is no, this is not called as overriding. This is not called as overriding, right? That means private methods will not participate in overriding, because private methods will not participate in inheritance. If there is no inheritance, there is no overriding, right? So private methods will not participate in overriding. So this is not called as overriding, but there is some other name is given. This is called as method hiding, right? Child class method hides the superclass method. It's called as what? Method hiding, not overriding. Absolutely, it is valid to have private method of B class with the same signature with what? Private method of A class. It is absolutely valid to have, but they are not overridden, because this method is not available to B. It is not said as what? Overridden, right? So inheritance means what? Method should be available, then only it is possible to override. Here there is no method available, right? So this is what you have here. So private variables and private methods. So definitely you come across private methods which are used internally by that particular class. They are not used by the outside environment. So such kind of methods we make as what? Private method, helper methods of that particular class, right? So this is what you have, private methods. And coming to the last one, private classes. And one more important interview point here, you cannot make a class private, outer class. Now whatever the classes up to now we have written, all these classes are called as what? Private classes. They are called as what? Outer classes. This is outer class. If you write a class inside one more class, that is called as inner class. Inside this class, yes, we can create some other classes inside a class, and that inner classes can be private, but not outer classes. It is not possible to make outer classes as private. It is syntactical mistake if you make outer classes as private. Java will not allow you to do this, right? So you cannot make a class as private class itself private, no, right? So if you make a class itself as private, it will not allow you to do this, right? Now here, let me compile my class called as A, Java C, A data, Java. So it is says what? Here it is showing you an error expected. Okay, fine. Oh, private public, not possible to use both access levels, right? It is not correct to use both access levels, sorry. How can you make a class as both private and public? Now see here, it is saying B extends A, the spelling mistake here. See here, modifier private not allowed here. A class cannot be made as private, outer class. But if you have class inside one more class, that inner class can be made as what? Private, right? So when we talk about inner classes, there we see what? Private keyword with inner classes, right? So here the private variables and private methods. You can have private variables and private methods. So the visibility or the scope is limited to what? Their visibility is limited to that particular class. They cannot be accessed directly outside of a class, though you create the object for a class, and they will not participate in any inheritance, right? So we have some other parts of your class. We have constructors. Can a constructor be also private? Yes, absolutely, you can make a constructor also private constructor. But when you make a constructor as private, you cannot create the object for that class by using that constructor, private constructor, no, right? So here, this is what you have here. So private constructors also can be there, right? But you cannot create the object by using that private constructor, internally used by that class only, right? So like this, we have the private access level. Okay, you understand where we should take the private. If you want, technically it is meaningful always taking the private variables, instance variables. Making private is always, it is preferable. And methods, yes, that is your requirement dependent. If you have methods which are used to use inside the class only, which are used for that class only, particular class, which are not used outside of a class, then we don't go. What is that inside method class means? Class inside class is called as inner class, but method inside method you cannot write in Java, right? It's not possible to write method inside method, wrong. Okay, so that's absolutely your decision to go with the private methods, but private variables is absolutely preferable. Instance variables, that too, not local variables, right? The second visibility level we have, and we call it as default visibility. But very important thing to be noted about this default is that there is no keyword to represent this visibility. There is a keyword, default keyword in Java, but that keyword is used in switch cases, switch block. It is not used anywhere. So this is not a keyword here. This is not a keyword. So when we say this is a default access, default visibility, if you don't use anything in front of a class, if you don't use anything in front of a class, method or variable, if you don't use any access level, that means what? If you don't use private, protected, public, if you don't use these three, then it is said as what? Default. But there is no keyword representing this default, right? So it can be used with what? Getting me? So if you don't use any access specifier, if you don't use any access specifier in front of a class or variable or method, then that visibility is called as what? Default visibility. Getting me? Right? So it can be used with a variable, right? Right, instance variables again is the same case. It can be used with a method, absolutely fine. As well, it can also be used with classes also. And very important thing is this can be used with the outer classes, comma this can be used with the inner classes, both. Right, so outer class can be default. Now in my case, in my program, see I did not specify anything in front of a class, then its visibility is what? Default visibility. Now here also in this case, class B's visibility is what? Default visibility. So what is the meaning of default visibility? So if I make a variable, that means what? If you don't write anything in front of any access level in front of a class variable, so they become what? Default. Right? If you write an instance variable and if you don't write anything in front of a variable, now int a. So what is the meaning of this? What is the visibility you have this? It is a default. That means whatever you write in Java as part of class level, a class or variable or a method, definitely they will have one visibility level. Whatever you write in Java, right? Definitely one of the visibility level will be there. Alright? So if you don't mention anything in front of a class or instance variable or in front of a method, so the visibility is set as what? Now here also I am writing nothing, I am writing here. So what is the visibility of this? So this is default. Right? There is no keyword you have. So what happens when what is the restrictions you have? What is the accessibility restrictions you have when I make my variables as or my methods as or my class as default here? What restrictions I have here? As we have a private, it is restricted to that particular class only. Right? So private things are restricted to that particular class only. What is the case with this default? Right? So they have bit more scope than private. Right? So their visibility is more than what? Private. So what is their visibility here? Right? So their visibility is limited to a package. Their visibility limited to a package. Or whatever you have here, so these things are visible. Their visibility limited to a particular package. That means what? So package is whatever we see. A package is a combination of different classes. Right? So yesterday we have seen packages. Now a package is a combination of what? Particular packages. Now whenever you have default things, these default things are accessible throughout the package. Throughout the package means what? So throughout the package, any class can access these variables or these methods or these classes. They are not visible outside of the package. Right? So private is restricted to a particular class and default is restricted to a particular package. So if your variable is private way, if your variable is what? If your variable is default here, what is the accessibility you have for this variable? It is default. And this is visible to the classes which are present in the same package. This is not accessed outside of the package. This method is also same story. This is accessed within the package only. This is not accessed outside of the package with some other classes. And this class is also what? Accessed within the package only. This is not accessed outside of a package. Right? So it is not possible. So it is restricted. This visibility is restricted to that particular package. So if you want to access them, if you want to access this class or this variable or this method, it is possible only to the classes which are present in the same package or same folder. Right? If you try to access them outside of a package they are not accessible. If you try to access them outside of a package, they are not accessible. Let's suppose if I place it into a package, right? I'm placing this class inside a package called as some pack1. Now this class, that means what? Class is accessible means what? If you want to create the object for this class, you can create the object for this class only in the classes which are present in the same package, because this class is not visible outside of this package. Getting me? Right? So if you want to create the object for this class, only possible in the classes, right? In some other classes, and these some other classes also must be present in the same package. Then only it is possible to create the object. Or in the same, if you want to access this variable, this is accessible within the package only. Some classes within the package. Otherwise, it is not accessible. Right? So the visibility is restricted to a particular package. Right? So this A is visible. This class A is visible to the other classes which are there in the same package. No, package. It is visible inside the same package. If you want to see this, right? Now I'm going to create this package one, as you know this, right? So let me compile this, because now I would like to place this inside a what? Java C -d, because package is there, and generate me the package and place the class inside the same package. This file compiled, and the package is also generated for you inside online classes. Inside online classes folder, there is a package with package name. Inside this you have a class called as pack1. Because this class is what? What is the accessibility you have for this class? It is default accessibility. Now I am trying to create an object for this class through some other class. Just one simple class I will take, where I am going to create the object for this class. Public class A. Right? Public, oh, it's not A. Why should I take again A? Main class for A class. Right? Now in the main class, I'm going to write main method. A is equals to what? New A. Just I'm creating the object. Now you cannot call it as A. It is said as what? Pack1 dot A. You cannot call it as A, right? This is pack1 dot A. That's what we have seen in packages. Now let me save my main program. It is already saved with main A. Now let me compile main A dot Java. See here what it is saying, boss. You cannot access class A. Why it is not accessed? Because main A is not part of what? The main class is not part of package 1. It is not part of what? Package 1. It is part of some other location. It is part of some other, right? It is part of default. Now it is saying, clearly saying what? Boss, you cannot access. A is not public in package 1. Cannot be accessed from outside of a package. No, you cannot access because it is default. Now if you want to access this main, yes, it is possible. Now you need to make this main A also part of the same package. Then only it is possible. Getting me? Main also should be part of package 1. Then only it is possible. Now let me save here. Now let me place this inside what? Package 1. Now main is also part of package, same package. Now I am going to compile, and I am going to place the main inside the package, same package. Now it is compiled file. Now see this. Previously it was not compiled. Now it is compiled. Fine. Yes or no? Now it is compiled. Previously it is not showing you, it was showing you the error. But you cannot access A from the main, because main and A both are not belongs to the same package. Both are different packages. So A is not visible outside of a package. Got me? Now I made what? Main also placed into the same package. Now it is able to access it. No errors here now. Okay? Yes. So that is what here you have. So whenever class is a default, not only class, this rule applicable for all. class, variable, method, everywhere it is the rule applicable. The things which are accessed inside the classes of the same package. Now it is not, if it is not a class of the same package, you cannot access, right? Now see, it is saying what? Not possible to access, boss. I'm sorry, because this class is not part of the same location, same package, right? So it is limited to what? The same package. So whenever you have default, the things are limited to that particular package. They are not accessible outside of the package, right? So it is a class, it is a variable, it is maybe a method, anything which is limited to that particular class only, right? That particular package only. Outside of package, classes cannot access them. The classes which are there outside of package cannot access them. So that technically you can say in simple, one more definition, one more word you can give for this. So you can say default access, or we can call this it is private to what? A package. So in simple you can say as private package. Package private, right? In simple, not private package. So they are private to package. Package private, right? So in simple you can say private to that particular package, or you can call them as default. But you need to remember here, there is no special keyword is there. There is no special keyword is there for to represent this. Getting me? There is no special keyword is there to represent it. That is the thing we need to keep in your mind. If you don't use any accessible level, if you don't use any keyword in front of keyword in front of this, then it is treated as what? Default. And they are available inside that package only, right? So this is one more keyword you have, right? So is this default will participate in inheritance? Yes, default will participate in inheritance, absolutely. But the child class also must be present in the same package, then only it is possible to inherit. If the child class is outside of package, they will not participate. Anyways, outside of package classes, if I have a default method, so default method can be inherited, absolutely, but within the package. It is not inherited outside of a package, right? So like this you have some restrictions. It has some visibility levels. In the same way, you have one more and most mysterious visibility level, right? Comparing to the all, this is what? Protected with visibility, protected, right? Fine, right? So what is this and how it works? Protected visibility level you have. This is one more keyword. Yes, this is a keyword. You have a keyword called as protected, which represents one more visibility level. Right. So what is this visibility? What happens when you take protected visibility? Right? So what is the meaning of protected visibility here? Right? So again, this is also applicable for 3 variables can be protected, absolutely fine, and methods can also be protected, absolutely fine with the methods also, no problem. And classes can also be protected. And very important thing is only inner classes. No outer classes are allowed to be a protected class. Only variables and methods, right? So you can have a protected classes, but only inner class inside class, that can be only protected. Otherwise it cannot be protected, right? So what happens to a protected variables? What is the meaning of protected, right? So this accessibility level specially meant for inheritance purpose. This accessibility level specially meant for what? Inheritance purpose, right? So as we discussed in the previous example, account class, if my superclass variables are private, so what is the meaning of taking a superclass? Example only I am taking here. What is the meaning of taking a superclass? Whatever I write inside this superclass, they should be visible. They should be visible to its child classes. If I make them as private, I told you to take the fields as private, so that you can protect them to access outside world. If my superclass variables are private, what is the meaning of them? They are not available to child classes. Then what is the meaning of taking them as superclass? Right? If you want the variables to be accessed only through child classes, not with some other classes, right? Then we can make them as what? Protected. They are protected. So whatever you write protected things in the superclasses, they are specially used for only child classes. That is where we come across protected, right? So only should be accessed through child classes. not through any other objects in Java. So in that case, whenever you have such kind of scenario, so to specify, so this is a special method which is given to operated only with its child classes, not with any other methods of other classes, not with any other classes. So whenever you have that scenario, then we go for what? Protected. It is for used for it is used majorly, it is used for inheritance. So whenever you take the private things in the super classes, whenever you have a relation between the classes, super class and child class, whenever you are making all common things in the super class, and these should be operated through only child classes, then we make these methods as what? Protected things. That is a special and bit confusing keyword, right? Access specifier you have, right? So that is a one scenario where we go for making the variables as what? Protected variables, right? So here now it is okay, then your class the class cannot be what? Protected. Whatever the classes you take, classes cannot be protected. You cannot write a protected class, right? So a class can be default, it's fine, but a class cannot be protected. So variables and methods can be protected, and when you make the variables and methods can be are protected, so generally the general meaning is what? They are for only the child classes. They are for only the child classes, not for all the classes in the Java universe. They should be accessed only by using the child classes, right? So what is the visibility you have for this, right? So it has bit more visibility. It has still more extra visibility than comparing to default and private, right? As we have discussed, default is limited to package. Now these protected things are visible. These protected things are visible to the package classes within the same package, and they are also visible outside of the package. They are visible outside of the package, but outside of the package only, only child classes can be accessed. Only child classes. So they will be accessed outside of a package, only child classes can access them. Getting me? So you will have, we'll see here, outside of the package only child classes. That means A is there, let's suppose A is there, class A inside pack1. Now this is not correct, just I am writing. This is writing the program like this is not correct. Package 2, right? If I have package 2, now in this package 2 I am going to write one more class B, right? So this class cannot access. This class cannot access. If you want to access the A class, if you want to access the A class variables which are there in package 1, then this class should be a child class for what? A. Then only this class can access these protected fields. If this class and that class, A class, is not having any relation, if class A and class B are not having any inheritance relation, then the protected fields cannot be accessed. That's the reason I said this is meant for only inheritance purpose. If the classes are there in the same package, now let's suppose package, okay, class C is also there in the same package. If class C also there in the same package, then class C can access them. No need of any relation between class A and class C. It can access, absolutely it can access. But when you try to call these protected things outside of a package, the class which is trying to call the methods, protected methods of a class should be a child class. So if you want to call from the B, if you want to call this method, B must be a child class of A, then only it can call, otherwise it cannot call it. Getting me? So protected, when you want to call the protected things, there should be a relation, inheritance relation between the classes, right? So this is where we use protected. Very rarely used access specifier. Is meant for only promote the inheritance, I can say, in between the super class and child classes, right? So this is where we use a protected visibility, right? So its limitation is its visibility is still more extra comparing to the default, but it mostly forces to use in the inheritance only. Use in the inheritance. That means, as I told you, whenever you have private class, whenever you want to define the private methods and all, right, it is not correct, because whatever we take in the super classes, they should be accessed in the child classes. Making them as private is not meaningful. And if you want to restrict them to be accessed only in the child classes, not to accessed in the other classes, then you can make them as what? Protected, so that they are accessed through child classes only, right? So that is where you come across protected, and this is the one you have and the last accessibility level you have, right, public. The most important accessibility level you have what? Public, right? So everywhere anything can be made as what? Public. Is the most important one, public, right? So we will have public variables, right? So we will come across public variables. Absolutely fine. Variables can be public. Instance variables I'm talking about, right? Instance variables, don't apply this to local variables. As I told you, local variables cannot be anything. Local variables cannot be anything. They cannot be public, they cannot be private, they cannot be protected, they cannot be anything. These are all variables means what? Instance variables only. Think that, keep in that mind. Methods, yes, nice. Methods also to be, yes, it's very important to make the methods as public and classes, right? And you can have both inner class, outer class, as well as inner class. Both can be public, right? Outer as well as inner class, both can be public here. Absolutely fine, right? So making instance variables public is absolutely, that's your requirement dependent, but as I feel, making the instance variables as public, not correct. Making the instance variables as public, not correct. Why? Because when you make the instance variables as public, these variables can be accessed anywhere. So there is no restrictions. When you say something as public, there is no restrictions. Throughout the Java world, anywhere, any class can access them. Right? Anywhere, any class can access them. So making the variables as public is not meaningful. Right? Though you can make it, though you can make them instance variables, you can make them as public, but it is not meaningful. Right? So methods, yes, that's again your choice. Methods are, as we discussed, methods are the ones which are used to communicate with some other outside of objects, right? So there are two types. Coming to the methods, that's your choice. So some methods which you want to, some other objects can call through some other objects. If you want to make, if your method should be called by using some other object, not by some other object. So if your method should be accessed outside of your class, right? If you take the ATM example, so access card, what is it? That card reader, I should operate. Some other outside objects can operate on that card reader. So if you want to, if your method should be exposed, right? So the functionalities of a class, the functionalities of a object, what functionalities object contains, all these functionalities should be exposed to the outside world by using public access only. Right? If you take the example of string class, right? So as we've seen the string class, so there are, already we have seen string class, java p, java.lang. String. See here, all the methods are here public methods. Why? Because these methods should be called outside of a string class, right? So I can use these methods anywhere. So string class, these object functionalities are what? They have, there are few, most of the functionalities are taken as what? Public. Why? Because these methods can be called through anywhere. Now if I want to find the length of a string, so I have given a method, I need to call that method. And string class is exposing. String objects contain those functionalities, and some other object can communicate with their string objects through their functionalities. So the methods by which your object can be called, your object can be performed, your object can be called here through what methods? That methods will be exposed to the outside world. So what is the meaning of public methods? In simple, public methods are those which can be called from some other programs, some other classes, right? So if you have a public method, so that method can be called by some other environment, right? If you see my account class, whatever the account class I have created, right? If you see my account class, right? Open this class, account class. See here, I have what? So if you see here, I made them as what? Default. What is the meaning of default? They cannot be accessed outside of the package. right? Making this deposit means what? It is publicly accessible. Every account method, every account object can be accessed this public. So this deposit means what? Public method, and every object can access it. Any Java class can access these methods. Now that is your choice. So making the methods as public is very important, because whatever the functionalities your object is having, so these functionalities can be operated from some other programs through these methods only, public methods only, right? So whatever the methods a class is having, if these methods are public, then only some other object can operate on these methods. Then only some other object can call these methods. If they are not public, the other some other programs cannot call them, right? So generally making the methods as public is very important. And class, yes, absolutely, making the class also public is correct one, because if your class is able to access, by some other programs, then only the class variables or class methods can be accessed. If your class is unable to access by some other programs, then there is no meaning of this. Class itself is not accessible. If class itself is not accessible, if the class itself is not accessible, then the methods and variables of the class cannot be accessible. So the most important thing is class must be public. And coming to the methods, some methods you can make as private, some methods you can make as public, right? That requirement dependent. So the methods which should be operated through the outside of program, so then we make them as what? Public methods. Variables, general instance variables, we make them as what? Private, right? So when you use a public, they will be accessed throughout the Java world. They are visible to every program, they are visible to every class, and every program and every class can directly access them, right? So making the class as public, right, is meaningful, because if you want your class to be accessed throughout the Java environment, it is always recommended to make the class as public class. And every class in the Java will be taken as what? Most of the classes will be taken as public classes. So that means there are only two visibility levels can be applied for classes. What are the two visibility levels applied for classes? Either it is default or it is public. No other visibility level applicable for class. And most appropriate visibility level for a class is the public, so that your class is visible throughout the Java world, and your class can be created the objects to it throughout the Java world, and by using that object, the variables and methods can be called, right? And making the public access methods is very important. Public access methods means what? The class, as you have seen, if you want to operate on the class, right, if you want to operate on the object, so we will operate on the object by using the methods only. If the method is not visible, then there is no meaning of operating that using that object, right? So generally we make most of the times we will make the methods also what? Public, so that they are visible to every class everywhere, and through every program we can access them, right? So that is what here. Now you have public access, right? So these are the four different visibility levels we have, which we can use according to your requirement. So you are going to use them, whether which type of visibility I need to apply for a variable or class or for a method. That's absolutely your requirement dependent. But most general cases, classes will be made as public, right? And methods will also be made as public, because if some other program, if you want to access them, we make as public them. And variables, most of the cases we take them as private, right? So to remember this, we make simple chart here, so that through this chart we try to remember one simple chart. Whatever I discussed, we remember all these things by making a simple chart here. Right now there are four different visibility levels. One, right, Z2, right, Right, so visibility levels I am writing here. The first is private. The second is there is no keyword to represent it, but we call it as what? Default visibility. And protected you have is a keyword. Protected. Most important thing in the interview point of view also. Public. Right? And just you can have visibilities, different areas you have different visibilities. Right, so this is what you have here. Now let me write these things. What is this boxes mean? You will understand now. Now if you take a class, let's suppose if I take a class called as A, there is a class called as A. Now whatever I am writing here based on this, everything related to class A within the class. What is the meaning of within the class? What is the meaning of within the class? Within the class A, right? And subclass, what is the meaning of subclass here? Subclass for A within the package. This class subclass is there in the same package, within the package, same package. Subclass for A within the same package, right? So you can also create there is some other classes which are not related to A class, other classes in the same package. In the package. Other classes means what? There is no relation between A and C. Let's suppose if I take here B extends A. If I take some other class means what? B extends A, such kind of thing, right? And here just simple class C. Now still you can have some other classes here. You can have a subclass for A, but outside of a package, not within the package. Right, you can have a subclass for A, but the subclass is outside of a package. Pack 2, and you will have one more combination you can come across, right? Other class, there is no relation between this class and other class from other package. Try to understand whatever I'm trying to write. Other package means what? This is some other class from other package. There is no relation between class A and this class. Right? So now we'll try to understand where the private can be used here. Where the private can be used. Where the private is used here. Right? So private is used within the class only. Right? Private is used within the class only. You cannot use this private anywhere. Outside of a class we cannot use it. Alright? Okay. So which are correct, which are wrong here? Private can be used within the class. Right? So this is S, and remaining all are what? No, 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 and what? No. What about default? What about default? Within the class S, right? Subclass of within the package. So it is accessed within the package. So all are S here, 3 are S, and here this is no, and this is no, outside of package. This is not visible outside of package. What about protected here? It is still more S, yes, within the package, yes, again here also within the package, yes, and within the package, outside of a package, subclass, yes, and outside of a package, other class, no. Public is all yes. Very simple to remember them. Public is all yes. everywhere you can access, right? And the most important thing you need to remember is, if the class is public, then only the fields, you need to think about the fields. If the class is not public, there is no meaning of thinking about their fields. If the class is public, then only it can access the fields. Right? So if your class is public, if the class is visible, then only its fields and methods are visible. If the class is not visible, its fields and its fields are not visible. Its fields or methods will not be visible. So first you need to check the visibility of a class. If it is fine, then only you check the visibility of the methods and variables. Right? This is what you have. And so these visibility levels also plays a major role inside overriding, as we discussed. So these visibility levels, this is what? So what is the lowest visibility level? What is the lowest one? Which is the least visibility level? Private. And highest one is public. So whenever you talk about these visibility levels, whenever you have a overriding concept, right? So anyways, private will not participate in any overriding. That when the superclass method is having whenever your superclass method is having a visibility, let's suppose my superclass method is having what visibility I have in my superclass? I have a visibility called as, I'm removing this packages and everything. Now what is this? A extends B extends A. Very simple, right? Now when I am overriding it, now I am trying to override it by using what? Simple method. Now what is the visibility you have for this child class overridden method? What is the visibility you have for this method? So B extends A, and what is the visibility you have? Default, right? Now let me compile my program here. Right, I am compiling my program with A dot Java. See, it is not allowed. Why it is not allowed here? See here, it is giving you method in class B. In class B cannot override the method in class A because you are decreasing the visibility. Protected is higher visibility than what? Default. So when you override the methods, the overriding method, the child class method should have equal visibility or higher visibility. It is allowed, but you should not decrease the visibility. Now it is fine. See, it is saying in the previous case, because I have a default visibility, it is saying what? Boss, you are trying to decrease the visibility of a method. It is not allowed. If you want to use the visibility, it should be same, or you can go with what? Highest visibility. More. You can increase the visibility. It is allowed, but you should not decrease the visibility. Right? Getting me? There is a one important rule you have. Now if my superclass method is public, now how should I override it? If my superclass method is public, how should I override it? There is only one way of overriding it, with public only. You cannot override it with what? Private. Absolutely no way of overriding with what? Any other visibility, right? So that is one key point here. So by default, interface methods, whenever you talk about interfaces, interface methods will have what? By default, public visibility. And whenever you create a child class for interface, you should always override the interface methods with what? Public methods only, because interface methods are by default public. Whenever you override them, you should always override them by using public only. That is remembered. That is a very important point to be noted. Right? So this is what about something related to access specifiers. Right? So I would like to stop the class today. Right? So you come early, guys, so that we can cover more.